So just a little bit of background about myself. I'm a social scientist by trade, and I'm also just a keen observer of human behavior by nature. And I'm also a dreamer and a doer. I like knocking things out, I like making things happen. I like going ahead and setting some sort of specific goal in front of me and pushing through obstacles and distractions in order to make them happen. I feel like this has a lot of practical value, but I feel like it also makes for a great story. And so think about the people that we know throughout history who have lived really great stories. Think about Abraham Lincoln, think about Thomas Edison, Marie Curie, think about Mother Teresa. And all these people, they set these tremendous objectives in front of them, and then they push through distractions and obstacles and what some would even consider to be failures in order to accomplish them. So I think that's really inspiring. And then you think about, okay, I surveyed the landscape of people, young adults, and many of them, they have really big dreams, and they want to lead really good stories with their lives, but somehow along the course of their lives, they get derailed. So as I'm thinking about that, I want to sort of consider some of the things that lead to them being derailed. And from my perspective, it's four major things. One, it's time drains. Two, it's priorities. Three, it's just related to fear. And fourth, maybe it's small thinking. And so I thought that, again, with the goal of wanting to live a great story with our lives, we think about those specific factors. I know that as we want to live a good story, we're often told to maybe consider what we'd be thinking about on our deathbed. And I think that we'd look back and we'd recall the great sort of relationships and friendships that we had over the years. And then we think about the choices that we've made and whether those choices actually mattered on a meaningful level. It's also been suggested to us that we consider our funeral. What will people say during the eulogy? Will they comment on the dreams that you had and how your life was marked by those dreams? And the fact that you pushed through obstacles and distractions and really pursued and accomplished those dreams. Or will words be said that sort of attempt to cover over everyone's restless suspicion that maybe, just maybe, this life wasn't really lived as fully as it could have been? And we're reminded that we don't want to have regrets. We want to make sure that we're able to live our life to the fullest. And so let's talk about those four things that sort of get in the way and derail us. Number one, time is short. We know that time is definitely short. We can't use that as an excuse, though, because we all have 24 hours during a day, or 1,440 minutes, or 86,400 seconds. And the people who accomplish their dreams, they don't have any more time than the rest of us. They just have more single-minded focus. And so thinking about that makes me think about the way that I try to live my life. I've known that in order to accomplish good-sized things, I need to take those things and break them down into bite-sized pieces, and then incrementally make progress on those things in order for me to knock it out. And so as I think about the course of my life, I think about, okay, how has this been relevant? And one thing that comes to mind was, a handful of years ago, during Christmas break from school, my primary goal was to learn how to do the Rubik's Cube and solve it within just a couple of minutes, pretty much every time. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And so I didn't have any other goals. That was my one objective. I didn't want to be overwhelmed. I didn't want my focus to be divided. So I just took it, and I just worked with it, and I put in the hours, and I put in the days, and eventually I was able to do it. And then my mind could shift to the next task. Recently, I wanted to learn this relatively complicated three-ball juggling technique called Mills Mess, which just involves the continuous crossing of hands. And so there again, I had to approach it, set it before me, and then break it down into these bite-sized pieces and master it movement by movement by movement. And then eventually I could put all those movements together and be able to perform it. I also think about how about 5 years ago I wanted to learn acoustic guitar, just to exercise a different part of my brain. And so I started taking weekly lessons, and then I started practicing as much as I can in between those lessons. Again, I just had this one single-minded focus. I didn't want to learn another instrument. I didn't even want to learn electric guitar. I just wanted to learn acoustic guitar and become somewhat proficient in it. And it's interesting because my guitar teacher would tell you that I have absolutely no musical talent, but I'm a testament to someone who knows what he wants, chases after it, and is single-minded and determined enough in order to get it. So the last example that I have for you is that just in my professional world, I've written or co-written 5 books, and each of those has required me to just buckle down for a number of hours, pretty much every single night, for months and months on end. And honestly, many times it's like I don't want to do anything else except just sit here and think and write. But I had to remind myself that, look, I I know this has value to the people that I want to read it, and I know that this is part of my professional calling, something that I'm made for. So I just had to do it. And honestly, I wish a lot of the achieving of our dreams didn't require so much buckling down, but unfortunately, it does. And so I just feel like this is the best approach to take as we're wanting to approach our dreams. Again, time is short, and life just gets busier and busier and busier, and we've got to be intentional about prioritizing our time and how we spend that time if we want to be able to achieve those dreams. Otherwise, honestly, it's not going to happen. Number 2, distractions. So obviously we want to accomplish our dreams, but sometimes distractions just get in the way. And honestly, I think they will just naturally get in the way unless we're intentional about it. And so one of the things that I see a lot of teens and young adults and adults get distracted by is that they tend to seem to get caught up in watching the lives of others, or get caught up in how they want to appear to others instead of simply just living their life and doing what they were made to do. I read this really interesting article back in 2003. It was written and published in Psychology Today by this gentleman named Paul Graham, who's an investor and a programmer and an essayist. And the article was entitled, "Why Nerds Are Unpopular." So I really wanted to read it. And so I thought about my life during high school, and he was talking about his life during high school, and he was saying specifically that nerds, they definitely wanted to be liked. They wanted to be popular while going through their school years. But what they wanted even more than being liked was to be smart and to do great things. He was saying that he didn't want to just do well in school. He wanted to learn how to program computers, or write well, or design beautiful rockets. It was a matter of what he valued. So I could spend my time, trying to be well-liked and trying to be loved and trying to be popular, because honestly, I do want those things. But again, my time is limited and my energy is limited. And so instead, what I want more than that is to achieve great things. And so I must spend my time doing that sort of thing in order for it to naturally happen. So that's what I try to remind myself of. And I also know that, the world changers out there, they're not constantly, updating social media with all the things that they're doing. I mean, sometimes yes, but mostly no. And I feel like they probably have hired help doing all their social media work for them because they don't have time for a virtual life. They're just too busy living the real thing. And I just feel like this is something that I want to be doing. I don't want to be caught up in anybody else's life. And I feel also that many other individuals that I talk to, they're kind of getting the drift, because there is a trend amongst young adults, teenagers, and even older adults who are now, more recently, deactivating their social media accounts because they're realizing that it's somewhat of a distraction, maybe even detrimental to them. And I applaud that. Because again, we want to have more time to focus in on our lives and focus in on developing and honing the skills that we will need in order to accomplish the dreams that we want to define our lives. Number 3, fear. I think a lot about fear and how I always just want to push through it. And I feel like, as we're young, we just tend to listen to our heart and follow our emotions and do the craziest, most wonderful thing. But maybe, just maybe, as we get older, we kind of move away from that. I remember this one time I was seeing this girl, and we went on this month-long road trip through northeastern Canada. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and we were out exploring, and so we decided to go for a stroll along these majestic oceanside cliffs. And there was a fence right on the edge to keep us from falling 600 feet down to the rocky shoreline. And she had given me a small yellow flower on a short stem, but I accidentally dropped it, and it fell to a ledge about 10 feet below, but outside of the fence. So I immediately thought to myself, I am so going to get it. And so I seriously climbed over the fence and lowered myself to this ledge 10 feet below, and exposed myself to the possibility of a very gruesome and tragic end, all for the single-minded goal and purpose of winning her heart. And of course, in retrospect, I would think maybe, and some other people would think as well, that this was incredibly unwise, this was a very foolish thing to do. But honestly, I hope that I would do it again, because I just know from my experience, and maybe even from your experience as well, that the greatest rewards often require the greatest risks. My last point has to do with dreams. Sometimes I just feel like our dreams are too small. And I'm not here to judge your dreams, but let's just talk about them in general for a second. So, when we're growing up, we're thinking about what we want to do with our lives, and I feel like we've got pretty big dreams. Maybe we want to become famous, maybe we want to become a celebrity, maybe we want to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We want to be well-liked, and maybe we want to have a cool car. Then I think, okay, we're getting a little bit older, and maybe our dreams shift a little bit, and maybe we're not so consumed with becoming famous or becoming a celebrity, but we definitely want to land a solid and well-paying job, and maybe find the love of our lives, maybe get married, maybe start a family, maybe travel, maybe own a home. And some other people have other really good dreams, such as running a marathon, or giving a speech, or performing on stage, or mastering another language. And again, these are all really, really good dreams. They're all very accomplishable, but then sometimes I wonder, I don't know, maybe as we get older we lower our expectations of what we think we're capable of. And I think that's kind of a shame, because I feel like we should continue to think big. When I think about myself, I'm often thinking about how I want to think big and I don't want to lose, sort of a childlike faith. I don't want to go ahead and, I don't know, settle for less in my life. And so when we're thinking about thinking big, I think it's important for us to continue to have an open mind, continue to think about what all we're able to do. What are some of the possibilities? And so I just feel like that's really important, and I hope that all of us continue to reflect on that, because again, it comes back to the story we want to tell with our lives. Again, we want to have a great story. We want to make sure that it resonates with other people. We want to make sure that it matters. And so I bring it back to the point that I brought up at the beginning. When you think about your future, when you think about you being on your deathbed, I mean, obviously we want all of us to be able to look back and reflect and be thankful and full of gratitude and full of pride about the amazing things that we were able to accomplish. And also at our funeral, we're hoping that things that are said point out the fact that our impact didn't just stop right there, but it continues because of the way we lived our lives. Because of the way that we lived our lives, it continues to inspire and it continues to help so many others. Thank you.